Well, I don't think that's good.
If they're not willing to pay workers a living wage, they shouldn't operate.
I don't agree. Why does the is not the I don't agree. Why does the is not the what right does the government have to come in and say, here's a business saying, okay, I would like to hire you, and here's the amount of money I would like to pay you, and the person can say, well, that's not enough, so I'm not going to work here, and the business is say, okay, goodbye, or they can say, sure, that's fine, I'll work here. It's a totally voluntary exchange, and the government is coming in and saying, I don't consent to this exchange, you have to charge more, and the company's saying, well, then I'm going to raise my prices, or I'm just going to get a automatic teller thing. And then so that seems to me to screw over the worker more. The person like, hey, I would be perfectly happy to work for that wage.
The government has the right to do so because the government represents the people living in California who have elected representatives who have run on raising the minimum wage because so many workers have a minimum wage that is not sufficient. They can't pay their bills. They can't keep food on the table for their kids. And so they wanted this minimum wage increase. Yes, of course, with a big macroeconomic policy like this, if workers are getting fired because there are layoffs, that's to the fault of the company itself if they're not willing to pay workers a living wage. So that's fine. It's a temporary problem. But I think it's a huge opportunity for Pizza Hut to close, for McDonald's to close, and for people to shop at local small businesses instead, and for work to be found elsewhere. California's public spending, they talk a lot about their deficit. I don't think that's a problem, because we're in a high interest rate environment. The money's going to have to come from somewhere for an economy to grow. And any time we've seen a high interest rate environment and the investment not coming from the private sector, it forces public sectors to go into deficit. Otherwise, the economy won't grow.
I find it very interesting how Robbie it's like his brain just malfunctions and he's stumbling over his words.
I don't agree. Why does the is not the I don't.
Very, very interesting indeed. Somehow this progressive seems to be much more confident and smooth when she speaks, and he more sounds like, how do I defend the indefensible? Like, she's making a good point. I don't have a good argument. Oh man, what do I say? Definitely I gotta pretend like I'm upset and already just, oh, how could you? And then look at the ridiculous argument that he makes, talking about how this is a voluntary thing, right? If the salary is too low, then you go work somewhere else. I mean, look, how old do you think this guy is? And he talks as if he's someone who was born yesterday. Voluntary? That's what he thinks? He really thinks the workers have that much bargaining power. You have many people who are poor, who are just barely surviving, and, fortunate enough to even have a job, right? Or an opportunity to get a job. And he thinks that these people, right, they have so much bargaining power to be, giving employers a middle finger, like, I don't need to take this job, right? I have lots of money in savings. I can afford to wait around for a better offer, right? That, it's almost as if he is a six-figure type of guy who's used to that type of thing of having multiple job offers and, negotiating power and, the ability to tell an employer to, I don't need this job. And it's very interesting because people in that segment, right, if you're making six figures and up, these are actually the people that what he's saying would be more applicable to. And interestingly enough, these are six-figure jobs. Wow. So it seems like when you actually have a lot of bargaining power because you have a significant skill that has a high value to employers, right? And therefore, it's putting you in a situation where employers need to compete, right? They need to be competitive, right? Because you don't have to work for this one company. You can go work for somebody else, whoever's the highest bidder, right? That's someone who is sort of in the driver's seat to some degree. Someone who is poor, who is making minimum wage, is not in the driver's seat of anything except for their car, if they even have one, right? So the idea that these people can be treated fairly based on, the ability to negotiate is absurd. I mean, does this guy, again, you look at his age, he's not aware of the reality of what happens when you're at that level. And what happens is the corporations operate as a sort of, I don't know what you would call it, alliance, for lack of a better word. It's like, they know that they have the upper hand. If this guy doesn't take the job, there's somebody right behind him that's looking for a job. There's so many people at that level that are struggling to survive. They need work. So you don't need to really give much. If they don't like your salary, well, go work somewhere else. This is voluntary, right? So the reality is most of these companies are going to set their salaries based on market conditions, and the market conditions are set on the conditions. And what are the conditions? The conditions are the employers have all the power, the workers have barely any power, right? So those are conditions that favor the employers, giving them more power. So therefore, generally speaking, the companies are going to lower their salaries or keep them low, right? Which is going to put pressure on everyone to do the same, because who's going to be the one that's going to jump in and going to cut into their profits by offering higher salaries than their competition, right? Who generally speaking, that's not going to be a thing. I mean, the way that business works is you want to maximize your profits and minimize your costs, right? So if there is an ability to pay less for your workers, you're going to do so. And having, the industry having so much power is going to mean that the industry is going to move to keep the salaries low, right? Which is going to incentivize everyone else to do it, which is going to mean you don't have a choice, right? Unless you have a high value skill that's going to put you in the driver's seat where companies need to compete for you and then therefore increase their salaries. Unless you're in that realm, you have little power, so you need to take whatever you can get. It's not voluntary. It's not just this fair system. No, it's fair to the companies, right? Because they're the ones with the power, and that's the whole point of government, right? Is to advocate for people just like this, people who don't have the power to advocate for themselves, right? So the government comes in and regulates things. Now, that's not to say that any regulation the government does is great. The government can absolutely do a horrible job, which is many times they do it. But the answer is not for them to not to have them not regulate. It's to have them do it better, right? If you buy a car and there's an issue with the car, the solution is not to blow it up. The solution is to take it to a repair shop and fix it. Right? Just because the car is not performing the way that it should, and there's maybe some significant issues with it, fix it. Right? I say fix it. Well, the GOP answer is to blow it up, right? And finally, the idea that raising salaries is going to put people out of business, I'm sure it will, and it should. Let me tell you the reality. It's funny that people that talk about personal responsibility and being an alpha male and you got to be strong and tough and all this kind of stuff. So so many times we see snowflakes, absolute snowflakes, right? The snowflake thing is, we got to protect the poor business. I've been in business for 20 years and you're going to make me close my doors. Where's the alpha male? The alpha male says, the reason why many of you have been in business as long as you have is because you've been able to take advantage of your workers and paying them less than you should, right? Because here's the reality. I don't currently have the capacity to run a successful restaurant, right? I'm not particularly skilled with food preparation, or I don't know anything about that business, right? But because salaries are so low, I think I'm smart enough that I could maybe come up with some kind of idea where I could run some kind of a restaurant and be okay when I shouldn't, right? I have no business being in a restaurant business. But if you're going to allow me to pay my workers so low, right, that's going to allow me to sort of cheat some profit, right? Because think about it. I mean, imagine if there was a way that I could rent a store for $500 a month. I mean, that changes the game big time. That takes a lot of weight away from me in terms of me having to be good business person, having an actual good business strategy, a competitive strategy, a unique strategy, something that's bringing value to the market, something that, is not the same thing everybody else is doing, right? There's a laundromat across the street, and I'm going to do another laundromat. What do you get from the laundromat across the street? You go there, you can wash your clothes. You come to me, what do you get? You can wash your clothes. Like, what value am I bringing? Right? The fact that I was able to slide through because the salaries are so low that I didn't need to make as much profit, I didn't need to be as innovative, and I was able to get away for so long. I mean, I don't mean to sound so harsh. I understand the pain of someone who's been in business for a long time having to close their doors, but that doesn't change the reality that they shouldn't have been in business in the first place. Look at how many of these, if you look in your Google and look at the reviews, how many of your local businesses have like 1-star and 2-star? How are you able to stay in business with such low ratings? I know every one of you listening to this, you know of just absolute trash businesses in your area. Why do they deserve to be in business? If you were a trash employee, you would get fired, right? How does a business stay in business in this way? The way that they do it is by the fact that they don't have to pay their workers as much, which puts less pressure on their profits, right? If you raise the salaries of the workers, then you make people like me stay out of businesses that I shouldn't be in the first place, right? And then also, what do you think will happen when the businesses close? All those 1-star and 2 businesses will close, and then their customers will go to the people who are actually good at business, right? So the small businesses that have good people that are creative and actually bring in value and actually have good ratings, right? They're gonna get a boost of business because all those extra customers from the 1-star, 2-star businesses that close, all their customers are gonna go to the 5-star local businesses, right? So the 5-star businesses is not going to have any issue with paying the higher salaries, right? Because their businesses are going to blow up. Now we need to open up more locations. Now we need to hire more staff because we have more people coming here. Get rid of the dead weight. I'm sorry to say it, and I know I can't imagine if I decided to go into business, even though I don't have a particular skill set, but with the salary so low, I was able to pull it off, and this is how I fed my family for decades. And the idea that I have to close my doors, I mean, I understand that, I can understand that that's a sad thing, but again, shouldn't have been in business in the first place, right? Should not have been in business in the first place. It's almost like, I mean, it's an extreme example, but I'm making it extreme to get the point across. Imagine if I'm struggling to survive, and I find this way to create this serum that makes people look 10 to 20 years younger, and I make so much money from it, and I'm able to survive and live a good life, and then 20 years from now you find out that the serum was made from me killing people. Right, I was literally killing people and then chopping up their body parts to make this serum. And then, I get arrested. They shut my business down. I know in that situation, most people can understand, crying for me is not appropriate. We understand the struggle, right? But I shouldn't have been in business in the first place. It's not right for me to be, killing people. And it doesn't matter the value in terms of me being able to feed my family and myself, or value that I was bringing potentially from the product. What I was doing is wrong. It's wrong to, basically start a way to survive by taking advantage of others, right? Taking advantage of them by not paying them what you should be paying them, right? If you can't run a business or come up with a good enough idea where you can bring in enough money that you can pay your workers a livable wage, then you shouldn't be in business, right? That's the tough love, right? That's the facts before feelings, right? So I'm not really worried about businesses closing, right? Because I realize all those trashy 1-star, 2-star businesses, they shouldn't be in business in the first place. Shut them down. Raise the income of the people so they can survive and have more money to spend on the real businesses. And I'll leave this on a final point. Notice how I don't think any of the top brands that you know of, none of them, generally speaking, are putting out 1-star, 2-star products. Right? Think about the top names: Samsung, Toyota, Honda. Right? The big boys, they can't, in terms of what I'm making a distinction of product versus, a local business. So when you're building a product, right, the product has to be good, otherwise it's not going to sell, right? And that's going to be a big problem. But when you're dealing with a local small business, it's the system's broken. You don't actually have to have a good product, right? You just have the right type of store in the right location, right? So there's no laundromats within a 2-mile radius or 3-mile radius, whatever it is. And you go build a laundromat, and just out of convenience, people are going to come and they're going to use your broken machines, right? Don't even sweep the floor, whatever it is, right? Homeless people hanging out, whatever it is, right? They're going to tolerate that out of convenience. But that doesn't work when you're selling a product, right? Notice when you're dealing with products, things seem to be more sensible. You've got to build something competitive. It's got to have good value. It's got to be something that people want, because otherwise they're not going to buy your product. They can just buy somebody else's product. But when you are brick and mortar, you can take advantage of location, right? If you're the only one that's convenient to somebody's location, right? Theoretically, yeah, they could go drive 20 minutes, 30 minutes to another location, but it's kind of like, do you really need to buy the same thing? Are you going to drive an extra 30 minutes and spend that money on gas? Or are you going to go to the store that, you can't get any service, no one answering your questions, whatever it is, the workers are rude? Are you going to just patronize them and then give a bad review? Or are you going to go drive 30 minutes to some other store, right? When it comes to products, again, you go in a store to pick up a product, right? It's just a matter of you swing your arm, 1 foot to the left or 1 foot to the right, one product versus another product. It's that easy. So if your product's not good, it's not gonna work, right? You can't. You don't have the monopoly of geography that a brick and mortar has, and therein is the problem. Anyway, this is the Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well. Pay the workers more money, but as always, when you come up with these policies that have good ideas, you're addressing something that should be addressed, something that's serious and important, make sure you're really thinking through what you're doing and how to do it. Yes, a lot of bad faith actors are sitting out there, you shouldn't raise the salaries, blah, 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 and this is going to make people okay, whatever. But just because there's a lot of bad faith people talking about a bunch of nonsense doesn't mean that you should yourself really evaluate what you're doing and how you do it, what the consequences are, and make sure you're doing it the right way, and constantly evaluate. You start this new program, pay close attention to how things are going. You're going to pick up on issues, be ready to address them, right? Don't put out bad versions of good policy, right? Thanks for watching.